Thank you so much, guys, for joining me today or tonight, rather, whether you are watching this feed live or listening to this broadcast at a later time. I am just so thankful that you guys have joined me today. So let me just introduce myself to you all and reintroduce myself to others who may already know me. My name is Sivonnia DeBarros. I'm the protector of athletes. I am the founder of the S.L. DeBarros law firm, where we represent 6- and 7-figure business owners as well as athletes in business by guiding them, supporting them, and educating them to their next level through business, employment, sports, and entertainment. I am also the author of the best-selling book, What Are You Sporting About? And the founder of What Are You Sporting About podcast. So if you guys have heard about the book, What Are You Sporting About? It definitely was and is the mechanism that inspired the podcast. So make sure you go out there to all the podcast channels, platforms, and subscribe to my podcast so that you can get weekly notifications when there are new episodes that are live. So today, what we're going to talk about, the title for today is Reflecting on 2020 and Setting Intentions for 2021. So I know if you're anything like me or just want to peruse through social media like I've done, you have seen and will see so many posts about the hardships that year 2020 has dealt us. I mean, it's like, it's a stack or a deck of cards like no other. None of us could have really foreseen or thought that 2020 would deal us such a crazy hand the way that it has, right? I know there's no way that I would have been able to really think that what has happened in this year would actually happen. So 2020 is all about perspective, right? And so we want to get our minds right, because all the things that have happened and taken place in 2020, it can either be a setup for you in 2021, or it can be a set down for you or downfall. It's all about mindset. So if you are one of those business owners or an entrepreneur who's thinking about creating or starting a business, now is the time to start, because we don't know when we will have another opportunity. We don't know if tomorrow will actually ever come, right? So tomorrow was never promised to us. We just go every day thinking on faith that we will wake up to see another day. But no one has told us, it's not written in stone, that we will actually see what tomorrow brings, okay? So with that, we have to have a clear mindset, and we have to set clear intentions, and we have to make sure that we engage in the right type of conduct to help us realize the intentions that we've set for ourselves. So let's talk a little bit about the right mindset really quick for 2020. For me personally, there have been extreme hardships in 2020. Those hardships came for me in the sense of losing people who I truly love, who's truly close to me, people who, because you have them in your life, they add additional value to you, right? You are who you are because of these particular people. Those are great people. Those are angels. I call them angels. Losing those people. Then there was a moment where my husband couldn't work because everything was shut down. Everybody was shut down. That's a loss of revenue, a stream of revenue that comes into our household. There was a moment where, because everything was shut down, my toddler was also home. And so a lot of you who do know me, and if you don't now, you're going to learn this little tidbit about me. There are times where I work from home with my 3-year-old. And that in itself is, that's a whole nother beast, okay? That's a type of skill set that they truly need to create a course for. But with that, it brings about challenges, right? There are people out here who have lost their jobs altogether. There are people who cannot find a way to pay their mortgage or pay their rent, right? But it's all about a mindset. You may be sitting in that moment thinking, how am I going to get to the next day? But you can change that mindset. Instead of how am I going to get to the next day, what am I going to do now in this moment today to make sure that what happens tomorrow will be better than what happened today, right? It's all a mindset. And so for 2020, unbeknownst to me, let me just back up just a little bit. In 2019, I had no idea that 2020 would deal us a crazy hand the way that it has. But in 2020, I found myself needing something greater, right? And I started praying and seeking Christ. God, what do you have for me? What is it that you want me to do so that I can be impactful, so I can make sure I touch as many people as possible to feed life into them, life into their business, life into them personally, right? And even in that moment, there was a thing that I wanted to do, which was write What He's Sporting About the book. At the time, I didn't have the title. And writing that book was so scary, y'all. It was so scary for me, but I've always realized, and I remember asking my contracts professor, this first year law school, I remember asking my contracts professor, did she ever get nervous when she entered the courtroom? Because every time I do anything, I get nervous. And I remember her saying to me, having nerves means that you actually care about it, but you can't allow it to get in the way of you actually functioning, right? So I wanted to write this book. And this is 2019 now, where I'm setting this intention for 2020. And I was so shaken by it, by the thought of it, by the potential criticism that may come from me writing this book. Okay, here's a lawyer, former athlete, never went pro. What does she know about sports? Here's all the critics. What do they have to say about it? All that stuff in the background was in my mind. And the book, it wasn't even written, right? I mean, it's crazy. I was scared. And I prayed and I said, you know what? 2020, no fear. No fear. And I just kept saying that, no fear. 2020 came. I continued to say, no fear. I set my intentions on no fear. Whatever it took, no fear. Whoever I needed to speak to, no fear, right? Whoever I needed to connect with, no fear. Whatever else I needed to do, no fear, right? And it was almost like playing mind games with myself, because although the nerves were there, although the anxious moments were there, I still had to remind myself, no fear, right? Because God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of a sound mind. And in every moment, we have to seek clarity, to be clear, to be concise in the things that it is that we want to do. And especially if we have the desire to impact and affect so many people positively, we have to make sure that our intentions, that our spirit is clear, right? So that was my mantra for 2020, no fear. Boom, the world shuts down in March. And I released my book in June. And prior to releasing the book, here's the idea for the podcast. Boom, podcast is up. And all of that happened because of no fear. Now, I'm not trying to, basically feed some kind of lies to you to say I was not nervous, because I was nervous. But there's a difference between being fearful in the sense that it stagnates you and it keeps you stuck in one space and unable to move forward, versus being nervous about what it is that you're doing. It's okay to have butterflies. And if you have those butterflies, if you are a little anxious, if you are a little nervous, that may just mean that, you know what? I care so deeply about this thing that I care how it turns out. I care how it affects people. I care how people take it. I care how people perceive whatever this thing is that I'm doing. Okay. 2020, no fear, had no idea we would be in this catastrophic world the way that we have all seen and witnessed. So I want you to take that and reflect on the year 2020. think about the things, and it's okay to do this. Think about the things that 2020 did take from you. Think about the hardships that it dealt to you. But on the flip side of that, you have to change your mindset and think about what are the opportunities that 2020 has actually given me. And I'm going to give you an example. For me, 2020 gave me connections like no other. That's number one. Connections like no other. When you are trying to create a brand, when you are trying to grow a brand, when you're trying to reach certain people in certain demographics that you probably have not spoken with or to before, right? You want to try to reach out to them. You want to connect with them. But it's hard to get in contact with anybody because everyone's on the go. This person has this speaking engagement. That person's out of time for this particular time frame. You know, everybody is so busy. And 2020 gave me people. It put everyone in their seats, at home, on their computers, at their desk, and it gave me the opportunity to be able to reach out to those people and actually get them on the phone, get them on Google, you know, get them in the email. They responded to me, right? And so sometimes, no matter how catastrophic things may be, I do believe that sometimes God will set things up in your favor, right? So we can reflect on what 2020 has done to us, right? The negative part of it, but we can also choose to set our mindset properly to change our perspective on what was the setup that was made for our own good. Because I'm telling you, there is positive things to reflect on from 2020. You have to be willing to change that mindset. 2020 also for me, so I lost a few people this year. The most devastating blow for me was losing my grandmother, my best friend, someone who actually raised me, right? Someone who was a mother to me. But in the midst of that, and you guys have probably heard a previous episode or seen me live talking about this, but I realized how much I had gained from having her in my life. Things that I never really knew, things that I never really reflected on. And sometimes we can lose people and it's a minimal impact to us. We love them, right? But they weren't intricately connected to us or intricately connected to our spirits in a way where them just being alive, being around, hearing their voice, it changes who you are as a person, right? We take those things for granted. And in 2020, it showed me that there have been times where I've taken her for granted, but I also realized the true love that Christ has for me, right? Because he loved me so much that he blessed me with another mother who truly who truly just blessed me in every way imaginable, right? Things that I probably could never have dreamed of. Someone who always had championed my ideas and my wildest dreams. And those kind of people are hard to come by, right? Someone who just pick up the phone and say, hi, I haven't heard from you in like a day. Are you still okay? So 2020 did that to me. I lost something, but I also gained something greater. And I've rediscovered who Sivonnia is and what I'm all about because of that. And so that's the positive flip side of that. That's the mindset shift because of 2020. 2020, although that as an entrepreneur, business owner, there were times when my clients couldn't pay their bills. And so my income dwindled a bit, the same as other people. But 2020 also allowed me the opportunity, the space, and the time to create another brand that's making headway, okay? Headway. So my point with that is there's a flip side to everything. There will always be cons, but there are always pros. And it's up to you to have the proper mindset to really reflect and change your perspective on what's happening to you or happening around you. And thank God that it actually did, because in the midst of all of that is an opportunity. It's a blessing. It's a deposit into your life to do something that you probably otherwise would not have done. Okay. So that's the reflecting part of 2020 that I want to talk about. Now let's set our intentions on 2021. Let's set our intentions on 2021. If you are the type of, if you are an individual who has always dreamed about doing a certain thing, starting a certain type of business, right? Or you want to take a certain course, or you want to shore up some skills, the time is now. The time is now. But I want to talk to you in real terms for things that I realized in 2020, taking that no fear mantra and packing that with my two intentions. And I don't want to confuse and say my two intentions because I have many intentions, but my two mantras for 2021. And I want you to think about what yours is. So for 2021, it hit me that my mantra is boundaries and consistency. Okay? Boundaries and consistency. Boundaries and consistency. Let me break that down. Boundaries. Sometimes, as a new entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a friend, as a spouse, as a parent, as a child of, an adult child, we fail to create proper boundaries in all of our relationships. And failing to do that will cause us a hindrance, right? It will keep us from elevating to the level we need to get to. It will keep us from elevating from the level that we desire to be at, that we desire to grow and be able to do more things and help more people. Boundaries are so important because not only does it define what it is that you want for yourself, but it also helps you to set a standard for other people who are on the other side trying to think about how to take you. How do they approach you? How do they deal with you, right? So you want to make sure you set boundaries. And here's a prime example. If you're paying someone else for their service, no one should be able to call you and automatically assume that you will give them a service for free. You cannot grow that way, and you cannot help people that way. Set your boundaries. Set your boundaries. If you have adult children or let's just say adolescent children who are old enough to understand, if you're working at home and this is the bread and butter of your household, there needs to be boundaries set with the members in your household to know, look, at such and such time, I am working these hours. You don't interrupt me for any reason unless it's an emergency. Okay, I know it seems like, I know it seems super crazy, super out there, but it's an example of setting boundaries. We need boundaries. Without them, we will not elevate to the level we need to be at. Okay, and not just for other people, but for our own growth, for our own satisfaction, for our own achievements. We have to set boundaries and we have to make sure that we are consistent with them. Consistent with them. And that takes me to my second mantra for 2021, consistency. 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 In 2020, okay, a lot of people were finding themselves pivoting. And as they were pivoting, they had to do some things that may have been out of the ordinary for them, things that may have been uncomfortable at times, things that were new to them. But they did them over and over and over again, and it produced beautiful results, right? You have to take that same mindset, that same idea, that same work ethic into 2021. If you want great results, you have to be consistent. You have to be consistent. And for me, the consistency part for me is shoring up the things that I have already done and set into place and have created a habit of it. You know, I read somewhere before that if you do something at least for 30 days straight, it will create a good habit, right? So think about how do we pick up these habits? How do you pick up just a regular habit? Just, maybe someone saying a crazy word or term or something, and you just start saying it over and over again. Now it's a habit. How did you pick that up? You had to mentally get your mind set on what that thing was. And every time before you said or did what it was, you had to think about it. Like, oh, I want to do this in this particular space, or I want to say this particular word. And now it just flows off your tongue, right? You just do it because it's habit. That's consistency. We can have good habits and we can have bad habits. But what is the one that's going to help you to be who it is that you aspire to be, right? 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I'm going to give you an example of consistency. A few years ago, I had the worst habit of not writing newsletters. And I realized how much my newsletters have helped business owners and athletes. And I just started getting into the habit. Every week, I write a newsletter. You can go to my website right now, my law firm website at www.sldebarros.com/blog. You will see a ton of free legal information. But it was hard getting to that place. And once I made it a part of who I was through consistency, through doing it every day, reminding myself to do it, setting what do you call them? Like alarms, setting alarms or reminders, right, to do it. I had the hardest time trying to keep up with writing a darn blog, right? But as I got into the hang of it, now I get frustrated if I'm running behind, if I'm running late in writing my new weekly newsletter. I get so upset, right? So that's an example of having consistency, doing something over and over and over again, that it truly just becomes a part of who you are. And if you want to read up on any of those legal newsletters, blogs, you can go to www.sldebarros.com/blog. Okay? /blog. So those are my two mantras for 2021. And that is what's going to help me to also build upon no fear in 2021. Boundaries and consistency. Boundaries and consistency. Without boundaries, you can forget about it. People will try to take advantage of you. And if you allow them to do that, you will not grow. You will not grow. Okay. And people need to know how to respect you. And the way that you do that is by creating boundaries. The way you reach success, the way that you become a 6-figure, 7-figure business owner, right? And I'm talking about net, not gross, is through consistency. Consistency, doing something over and over again that it's become a habit, a good habit that you find yourself becoming agitated if you can't get to that thing. So I want you all to take the time to reflect, like I said, on 2020. And I know it's been rough. I know it's been rough. I've been there. I am there with you. But it's also created some beautiful things, some beautiful opportunities. It's revealed ourselves to us. It's shown us how resilient we are. It's shown us how we can persevere through anything. It's shown us that we are truly overcomers. We are truly overcomers. And the biggest upside to 2020 is the fact that, guess what? We made it. We are here. And if that is it, I mean, if there's nothing else, it's a blessing to be amongst the living, right? Right? So reflect on 2020, but change your mindset quickly, okay? And set your new intentions, your new mantras for 2021 so that you can grow and be bigger and better than you've ever imagined. Because I'm telling you, somebody's waiting for you. But if you hold yourself back from a negative mindset, you won't be able to reach it. You maybe years down the line, but now is the time. We don't have time to waste. We don't have time to waste. I said when I first came on here that, we don't know if we will have tomorrow. We don't know if tomorrow is promised to us. So don't keep waiting to live and materialize your dreams. The time is now. Happy New Year.